Yo, yo, yo. This is one of the craziest. Like, I am blown away with one of the craziest races that we've seen because, Tim, when do you ever see Max Verstappen not
Never.
finish one?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
it
Like,
has.
it's been a long, long time. Never. And then beyond all that, and I think this is what's even cooler, is that Lando Norris had a good start. When do we ever see that? You know, he's on pole, but he had not only a good start, I would say a masterful start. A start that a world championship driver, that's what you would expect for them, Tim. It's all happening, and it's all happening in Australia.
Yeah, it was a great weekend from Lando, Adam. I mean, I think like the start itself, if I was Charles Leclerc, I'd probably be pretty pissed off because he came over and blocked me, and that allowed Oscar Piastri to get by. But I mean, hey, it was a good start nonetheless. I thought Lando's whole weekend, Adam, he was very consistent. And, you know, we talked about this on Wednesday with Ed Straw from the race, like essentially need more consistency from him. And he delivered that this weekend. Like, I thought he was really good. I don't know if you got to see the whole race, Adam, or just the start or wherever, but like I thought Lando for the entire weekend was just on it.
He looked rock solid. We were talking about the need for him to have that kind of race, Tim, and that's the part for me that I was so encouraged to see, because obviously, especially between laps 1 and 15, you saw Oscar really pushing Lando. I feel like Lando did right off the start. Oscar, like he did him a huge favor by covering off that Ferrari, right? And Oscar, rightly so, is going to try to take advantage of Lando trying to cover the Ferrari. And the almost passes those two made, or the passes they did make, and then the pass backs were clean. They were good racing. They gave each other, distance. There was respect there, but Lando did not capitulate. He bent, but he did not break. And then there was that one, and I think it was lap 31, where Oscar kind of went on a bit of a dive bomb, and he locked up his right back brakes, and then they, the guys on the radio are like, hey, don't do that. It's a little too close. It's too much of a risky move. The fact that Lando got Oscar to make a mistake like that, because what we've been talking about so much is Oscar's ability to just keep it locked. He is a focused, unflappable guy. For him to make a move like that tells me he was feeling a little 100%, bit desperate.
And I think also like that one attempted move into turn 4 where he had that big lockup and got a flat spot on the tire, like that, McLaren had to like come back and say, hey, don't do that again. But that shows you, like you had said, Adam, the level to which that Oscar was just so determined to try and get by Lando, because the two of them were just so well matched within the race when it came to lap time. Like they were super equal. I mean, the first stint, Oscar did have that advantage, but as the race sort of crawled along, you kind of saw Lando start to extract a tiny bit more from the MCL 39 than what Oscar could do. And I think that first stint, if McLaren maybe thought about bringing Oscar in a lap sooner, or brought Oscar in a lap after Lando had pitted, then maybe, we're having a different discussion. Maybe this race ends up a little differently. Maybe it ends up a little bit closer than whatever it finished at, as 1.8 seconds or whatever it was that Oscar finished behind Lando. But the two were just so well matched all weekend long. And I think for Lando, for his story, Adam, I think, a big part of his success this weekend was getting off to a good start. But also, if we go backwards, coming off of that disaster in Canada, running into the back of his teammates, ending his race, not collecting any points, and then having to do a little bit of a rethink. Like, Oscar is operating at a really high level. So Lando is thinking, I got to get to that level and stay there. So he goes back to the drawing board. He starts putting more work into what he does at the factory. He starts putting more work into how much time he's spending in the simulator, and he's putting more time into himself personally, just making personal gains outside of the race car and outside of racing altogether, which is, it's really good. It's going to make him a much stronger competitor down the line. And I think this hard work that he's been putting in over the last little while here, we're seeing it pay off in Austria. And I would say a bit in Canada as well, because he was the faster driver in Canada, just didn't execute properly. When you look at also the car, the MCL 39, the updates that they brought, you go back to Canada again, referencing, the front suspension was new for Canada, and they were working on that for Lando. And essentially what they were working on, and what we had talked about in our post-Canada podcast, was queuing, is what McLaren calls it, essentially giving Lando more feedback so the front of the car doesn't feel so numb and he can actually feel like what it's doing. So they take that concept and they bring forward a massive update to the entire front end of the car for Austria for the foreseeable future as well. It's probably the biggest update they're going to bring to this car all season long. And they did take a step. And hearing from Lando about the updates on Saturday following qualifying, he was feeling good about them. And same with Andrea Stella, hearing from him as well. Post-race, again, talking about how the update appears to have given the drivers a better balance with the car and more grip. And I think for Lando, that feeling of the numbness that he gets from the front end of the car, just not really there for this weekend. And I think that also allowed him to get off to a really good start in free practice 2, free practice 3, executing through quali and then executing through the race. Adam, I think if Lando can keep that consistency going, now he doesn't always have to be, beating Oscar, but as long as he's just in the ballpark and not giving up huge points, I mean, we've got one hell of a championship fight for the second half of the season here.
Well, yeah, and I think this race could have determined a lot of things had Lando not won it. Had this been an Oscar win, we'd be asking if both Max and Lando were potentially out of the championship race. We're clearly not going to ask about Lando. Max, we might get to, but I know better than to bet against Max Verstappen. However, I think it's interesting that, when you saw the race results themselves, and there were safety cars, and there was Carlos Sainz not working, can't get the car started at the beginning of the race, then does, then the brakes are on fire, Albon retires, Max and Kimi get into it, and it's Kimi's fault, and he apologizes, whatever. And what's lost in that is Ferrari had a pretty good race, but Charles Leclerc can't be thrilled about how things went. And I wanted to talk to you about his race and about his pace, because it seems like they may have missed an opportunity this weekend. What are your thoughts?
Well,
on
I think if Ferrari is Ferrari's a big conversation for this weekend in particular, Adam, because of the updates that they brought to the Ferrari for this weekend with the new floor bits, I should say. So Leclerc didn't get to run them in free practice 1. He didn't get to run at all in free practice 1 because he had someone else filling in for him. He had a younger junior driver filling in for him. So Charles didn't get into the car until free practice 2. And it's at that point he got to test out the new components that Ferrari had brought, and they didn't really work well for him at all. The setup that they had on the car was all wrong. He didn't feel good in the car. He didn't feel good about the car. He didn't feel good about the updates. And then you go from Friday to Saturday, you get into free practice 3 and qualifying, and the team has made a massive adjustment with the setup on the race car that has Charles a little more happier, and he can extract a little more performance from it. And then you take a look at their qualifying. Ferrari hasn't been great at qualifying all season. Let's be honest here. They just haven't. The car hasn't been there for that. But they have been strategizing their races. They have been really putting a lot more emphasis on the races, much the same as what McLaren has done with their car. Ferrari is kind of like trying to emulate that, where not necessarily the fastest car over one lap, but the fastest car throughout the race distance is something that they are trying to achieve. So coming into the race, I think both Leclerc and Hamilton had high hopes of finishing somewhere close to the podium or on the podium. I think, for Lewis, I think he knew he had his work cut out for him this weekend from starting from P4. I think he knew it was going to be a little more of a challenge to try and get the podium position. And who knows what would have happened with Leclerc if he hadn't have gotten held up by Norris off the start. But the first stint for Leclerc, he had explained that was a very challenging first stint for him in the car. It didn't feel good. The car didn't feel great. The tire was dagging a lot. He had to lift and coast quite a bit. A big reason for that he wouldn't divulge that information. So I'm curious to try and learn more why that is. But then once he got into the second stint, the third stint, the car, he said, started to come more alive, and he felt that he was more on pace with what the McLarens were doing. But at that point, the McLarens had already opened up a big gap, and it was already too late. So I think for this car and the updates that they've brought, it's headed in the right direction by the sounds of things. And they need another round of updates that they are working on to come to the car. Now, it just depends when that's going to be. Leclerc wasn't sure if they were going to fast track these components, bring them to the car for the British Grand Prix, or if they were just going to hold off, save them for like Spa, Hungaroring, or maybe even after the summer break. And then once those components come, then have a better idea of where your car is at, because essentially you're trying to refine all these different components to make them all work together and not just throwing one massive update on the car and then hoping that it works. It's more along the lines of tinkering here and there and there. Now, as for Lewis, Adam, he had an interesting weekend.
Right.
Like just hearing from him, like it really does sound like for Lewis that every single track he goes to, it's almost like he's having to relearn a new car or start from scratch. He'd said that on Saturday following qualifying, and that makes me think that, okay, well, if you're having to do that, then when he was with Mercedes, he didn't have to do that because of the DNA that was sort of baked into the Mercedes. It was more attuned to his driving style, where with this Ferrari, it's just not. And so that's something that he's kind of on the back foot when he starts the weekend already, and then has to sort of catch up to Leclerc and what he is doing throughout the weekend. So you're always kind of starting, with one hand tied behind your back before the weekend even gets started, where your teammate just isn't. And that isn't that's not bad. I mean, it's just the way it is at this moment for Lewis, for him to get comfortable and really learn the DNA of this car. The other part of it was that I found interesting for Lewis is that over a race distance, he's having trouble getting to grips with the balance of the car as it changes throughout a Grand Prix distance. So if, in qualifying, you're hauling the mail for one lap, in a race, it's a lot different. The car evolves over a race. The track evolves over a race. You're having to run different tire compounds, and then also the fuel is coming out of the car as well. And so a lot more there for him to really have to work on and understand. But all in all, Adam, it sounds like it was actually, I know there's memes flying around it there on like Leclerc and Ferrari and lift and coast and all that stuff, but it really does sound like a very positive weekend for Ferrari as a whole. And I'm actually pretty optimistic with the team actually moving forward throughout the rest of the season, Adam, because I really do think they can. I really think they may be able to get a victory at some point this season.
Well, certainly, and I wonder, and I know
Mhm.
Freddie Vasseur was not there this weekend because of personal matters back home. Hope
Mhm.
everything is well with him, but there has been a lot of as there always is with Ferrari. Oh well, John
Yeah.
Elkann's going to
We
replace
should
him,
talk
and
about that
this and
too.
that,
Should talk
whatever.
about that.
Does this alleviate that?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So what do you know about it, and where is it coming from? Is it the Italian press?
Yeah, that was
who's
one of the
got this
things
story?
that I wanted us to touch on post Canada, but we only had so much time to work with. I had to jet off and get onto a plane, so we never had time to sort of like really like
Yeah.
dig into it, because I did get to sit down and talk with Fred about all of this, and it, he wasn't happy with the Italian media reporting the things that they were reporting, because to him they just weren't true, like the things that they were saying and things that they were writing, and the drivers not being happy. And you kind of compare that with what Lewis had said during the Canadian Grand Prix, and the way Lewis had sort of worded what he had said was kind of like, if it wasn't for Fred, I wouldn't be here, so we're just going to leave it at that. So if Fred's not here, I'm taking that as, if Fred's not here, I'm not going to be here, kind of a thing. So I think when we look at Ferrari, it Loke Serra hasn't really been at the team for that long to really make a difference with the race car as well, and you have to give people time if you want to have success. Like, I mean, when did Jean Todt joined? When did Jean Todt join Ferrari? In I think it was 93 or 94, something like that. And then I think it was 8 years of Jean Todt. Don't quote me on the day. It was a long period of time. Pretty sure it was 8 years before Jean Todt joining Ferrari, and then Ferrari winning a constructors title. And so it had to go that long to change the culture within the team and how they work and how things sort of come together. And Toto Wolff was actually asked about this following the race, and today on Sunday. And he actually, said that the biggest thing is trying to make sure that you are building the culture in the time that's needed and required to build a culture. He kind of felt like team principles now are just being thrown out and recycled too quickly. And guys aren't having enough time when they come in, sort of put their stamp on the team, create the team, and see how it does over a longer period of time, because you are trying to make a culture shift within a massive amount of people, thousands of people, and a massive factory. And when Toto Wolff simply says, if he wasn't working at Ferrari, I'd hire him. That tells you something, right? Because that's sending that signal that Ferrari, get it together. You've got someone who's really great, who knows how to run a race car team. You got to let him do his thing. And so I think that's where we're sort of at this sort of moment with that conversation. And I haven't seen anything that would lead to me questioning, why would you move on from Frederick Vasseur? I mean, I remember Maurizio Arrivabene was there, and I was just kind of like, oh boy, I don't know about this. I don't know. He's not a racing guy, and I'm not trying to slam Maurizio Arrivabene or anything like that, but Frederick Vasseur is a racing guy. He's come through the ladder. He's worked in different types of racing categories. He knows racing inside and out. He knows how to run a team. You got to just let him do his thing. And so I'm glad we get to have this conversation as well, because it's an important one when we take a look at how quick we are to react to things and to move on from people and whatever and cast them aside and all this kind of stuff. Because for Fred, he is the guy, but you have to give him time to make the adjustments that need to be made for him to visualize the team the way he wants it to be.
And you know what? He's done a pretty darn good job. He's pulled them up, even though they are only the second fastest team on the grid.
Yeah.
They're the second fastest team on the grid, and they're catching. It's they also signed the best driver of all time. I do think there's been a ton of positivity, and it does take years. And also, we have a regulation change. This is all jump ball next year. We have no idea what the field's going to look like. Now, Tim, so it was good to see. I know Lewis is still frustrated with the car, but like ultimately, good to see him in fourth place. Would love to see him win his first race with Ferrari at one of these points in time. It just looks like McLaren's a little too fast right now. I'd like to talk about a little bit about the rest of the field, and I want to start with Kimi, Antonelli, and Max Verstappen. Obviously, both of their races last three corners, and they're out, and it's Kimi's fault. And Max and Kimi, were totally cool, and Kimi apologized, whatever. But this is a race that Max Verstappen crashed out of last year. This is the home race, and frankly, Tim, before this even happened, Max had not qualified all that well. Car didn't look great. He was talking about the fact that it had grip issues, that he said, was undrivable. Tim, I got to ask you whether or not Max would have been able to make something out of nothing in this race, and he normally can. Things do not seem to be going well at Red Bull at all, and we haven't even brought up Yuki.
Yeah, you're right. It definitely is not going well at all. I don't know, even if Max didn't have the issues that he had in qualifying, I don't even know if he would have qualified much higher up the grid than where he was, maybe fifth, maybe fourth. I'm not too sure he's setting the type of lap that Leclerc was setting, or even Lando Norris. The Red Bull had brought some updates to their car for this weekend, and they really just didn't look like it worked. Like it was a smaller update to the floor, but I don't think it was big enough. I don't think it works. And I also think it needs more refining, and you need to add more components to it to get it to work. And Red Bull's already thinking about turning the tap off with the development of this car and moving on to next year's regulation. And they've already been working on it, but I mean, really turning the tap off.
Right.
And really moving on to 2026. And I got to think that if I'm Max Verstappen, I have to see what this team is going to be like for my future, because I'm only so young. I'm only going to be around Formula One for so long. I have to, make hay while the sun sort of shines here. And so if updates aren't working, then that's got to send a signal to Verstappen saying something else is going wrong at the factory. Like something is not allowing this piece of equipment to come out the way they want it to fix this car, because there's so many issues with it. And for Max, being obviously the ultimate competitor, he's going to get pissed. Like he's going to be upset, and you're going to have to, if you're Christian Horner, you have to try and make him happy so you can keep him. Like you have to hold on to this guy, right? For the start of this race, I mean, obviously it's unfortunate to see what happened to Max with Antonelli crashing into him. Antonelli didn't, that was just a rookie mistake. The guys checked up in front of him. Antonelli just was trying to avoid running into the back. Yeah, it happens. Yeah,
it happens.
Exactly. Just trying to run into the back of a Racing Bulls and going for as much open space as he can to scrub as much speed off of the car as he can, and just Max, wrong place, wrong time. Just a calamity of errors, really. And Antonelli, like you had said, Adam, did apologize to Max, so that's all sort of water under a bridge now. But the amount of points that have been taken out of Max Verstappen by not finishing in Austria is devastating to his championship hopes. Like, he's extremely far behind Oscar Piastri now. He's way behind Lando Norris as well. Updates aren't working. If they're not working properly, I don't know where you see there's a path forward to kind of biting your way back into this championship. So if you think about it this way, the updates, if they get them to work, great, fantastic. Again, like I had mentioned, if Red Bull's turning off the tap, you have to make sure that your next round of updates are going to work and going to make this car fast. So he needs that. That's one. That's just one. The second part of it is he needs Lando Norris to take championship points away from Oscar Piastri. That's two. And the third part of this whole component is Max Verstappen would need to outscore both McLarens to have a shot at getting back into this championship chase and this title fight. And all three of those things coming together, Adam, I mean, that's a really tall ask. It's going to be difficult. I mean, obviously Verstappen has the talent. Like, he's one of the most talented racing drivers we've seen in this generation, but even a talented driver like Max can't pull off all three of those things. Like, he can't fix the car, he can only drive it and make it go as fast as it can go. And so he has to rely on Lando Norris to do those things that I'd mentioned, and he has to outscore McLaren.
Well, I mean, and Tim, you're seeing Liam Lawson out-qualify Max at Red Bull's home race. Liam Lawson, who has had a really tough go, couple of races with Red Bull, and then back into his original car and is gaining confidence. And listen, there's a reason why the Red Bull program loves this guy so much, right? And it was great to see Liam have success, and he obviously raced very, very well. But what? Nobody can enjoy that success if the senior team, the real Red Bull team, is not doing well. And Yuki is a non-factor. It's crazy, Tim, because we've all sort of accepted that the Red Bull car is bad. Last year with Sergio, people were like, wow, Sergio's failing out. This is bad, blah, blah, blah. This couldn't be a better endorsement of Sergio Perez and how he needs to come back to the sport, because we all know Yuki Tsunoda is a fast driver. We all know Yuki Tsunoda can do better than this. But, I mean, he had no chance at points. Obviously, he had the spin out as well. This guy, he can't get anything out of the car. It's sort of like, I don't know, it's such an unbelievable fall off in Formula One terms. It's so fast that I think it's hard for people to wrap their head around. This is a team that 2 years ago lost one race. The rest of them, they won. I don't know how this, I mean, I've never seen such a fall off this quickly, I guess.
It's all about that. It's all about that development. It's all about not only that, but making sure the car is drivable. Like the car just does, the Red Bull cars haven't had that drivability factor in the ground effect era. Like, it just hasn't. I mean, maybe for a little bit for Sergio Perez in 2022, and maybe for a little bit in 2023, it had that bit of drivability. But then once they started adding updates to it and making the car faster, the car went sideways. It was gone, and it's just been basically Max papering over the flaws of the car, and that's essentially what Max has been doing. Like, he's been putting the car on his back and carrying it across the start finish line. Like, that's how incredible this driver is. For people should witness that. Second of all, Yuki Tsunoda is not a bad driver, Adam. Like, you even said it yourself, and I agree with you. Like, he is a very good race car driver. He should be in Formula One.
No, he's not.
He's not performing to the level that he needs to be performing, and a big part of that is because of the car. Like, it's just not good, unfortunately, for Yuki, and things just aren't going well for him. I mean, hearing him on Saturday when he says in Q1 he goes out to do a push, car has balance, can trust it, has confidence in it, can take it to the limit, will be able to predict what it's going to do. And then the second push, the balance is absolutely gone. He doesn't know where it is. He can't trust the car. He doesn't know what it's doing. Doesn't know why it's lost balance. And for a drive, like, that has got to be a very unsettling feeling as a driver, to have that happen, to not have a car that is predictable, consistently predictable. And I honestly don't know how Yuki's been able to even get the car qualified, like, do the things that he's been able to do. So,
yeah, it's almost impressive, despite the fact that the results haven't been impressive. It's impressive seeing Yuki doing what he's doing, trying to get anything out of it, which is a shame. And so, yeah, we'll move on from Red Bull, but this is a very, very interesting point of the season. I can't imagine their corporate ownership is very thrilled with how Austria went for them. Now, Tim, let's talk a little bit about Liam Lawson. Isaac Hadjar, rightly so, has been taking up most of the oxygen, and he's had a great rookie season. Liam Lawson really this is his first season. He still has not done a full season of Formula One, so technically a rookie too, and obviously a disaster start. But for him to out-qualify Max Verstappen, forget about what happened in the race, which was impressive. To out-qualify Max Verstappen, that as a driver must be one of the most incredible feelings, because that's the best guy in the sport, and also to do it at Red Bull's home track, that's got to feel pretty good.
100%. It's got to feel amazing. I think for Liam Lawson, sort of, similar to Lando Norris, where it's putting in all the work that's in the factory that people don't see, putting all the work into the sim, which again, people don't really see, and then that hard work bearing fruit. Mm-hmm. Canada wasn't totally bad for Liam Lawson. Like, it wasn't horrible. Austria was like a step. You could see that that's a legitimate step for Liam Lawson. Like, the car has drivability, and if the driver has confidence and understands the car and can get the car closer to where he wants it, then he's going to have good qualifying performances, and then obviously in the race as well, if the car is consistent, which they have, which the Racing Bulls car is. They have got a very solid race car. And Lawson had to put the work in with the crew, with the engineers at the factory and in the simulator to try and find setups that work for him so he can bring the car closer to what he needs. And it kind of looks like in Austria, all those sort of things kind of came together for him in that moment. And he did something special with the car. He did. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be able to keep that going throughout the rest of the season. I'm sure there's going to be dips. I'm sure there's going to be tracks where this car is just a handful, but this was a good start. This was good for the confidence. I thought he drove really well. I think trying to keep Fernando Alonso behind you for like 70 laps is a thing. I'm not sure how he did. I'm not sure how he did that, Adam.
Yeah.
Like, because that's two-time F1 world champion, one of the greatest of all time, hounding you down for 70 laps. So, yeah, hats off, because I thought Liam Lawson drove a hell of a race.
And so, too, it seems, did the Kick Sauber team. Like, I heard on the broadcast somebody say it appears Sauber has turned the corner. Jonathan Wheatley has got to be absolutely thrilled. Double points. I mean, listen, Hulkenberg, you expected him to be a qualifying god, because he is. He does great jobs with qualifying. But seeing his race and his races in this car, he's starting to seemingly figure it out. Their upgrades are seemingly working, and seeing Gabriel Bortoleto challenge Fernando Alonso the way that he did, Fernando Alonso, part of his management team, which I think is just so funny. Tim, let's talk a little bit about Sauber. What a great story. Right now, only 2 points behind Aston Martin for that 8th spot. And you got to think, with Williams' struggles recently, the next half of the season, if Sauber's going to come on and Williams is going to focus on their development projects for next year, this could be a real opportunity.
Huge, massive, Adam. You're absolutely right. And this could be the wrong move for Williams to do, right? Hey, we're going to focus on 2026. This is what we're going to do. We're not going to bring any more big updates to this car. And then all of a sudden, here comes Sauber. Aston Martin has some big updates coming to their car too. If they can turn it around, here comes Aston Martin as well. And then if you're Williams, you're going to have to think, was it a good idea for us to switch the tap off so soon with our big updates and give up on this car? Because this weekend for Williams, Adam, was not good, but it was great for Sauber. Nico Hulkenberg starting at the back, taking this car all the way to a point, into the points. Amazing. Incredible drive. Absolutely incredible drive. Then for Gabriel Bortoleto to score his first points ever in Formula One, doing a masterful job of, again, hunting down and trying to get by Fernando Alonso, which was really fascinating to watch because of, like you said, Adam, that dynamic between Alonso and Bortoleto, Alonso obviously being his manager, and seeing how all of that sort of plays out. I wanted there to be like at least 5 or 6 more laps left in this race so we could actually see what could happen between those two. But unfortunately, we didn't get that. However, I thought Bortoleto was amazing all weekend long. The updates that they brought for their car this weekend seem to be working. So if you go back again, it's that whole factory in CFD and wind tunnel and your racetrack and all those things communicating and trying to get components to the car that work. If you go back to last year, the year before that, when Sauber brought components to the car, I mean, never worked. Like when they would bring components to their car, which they really didn't bring many, but when they did, just never really worked. And when you look at what Jonathan Wheatley has done, what Mattia Binotto has done, and trying to get the team focused on that process, I mean, they've done really well. It works. Their updates work. And that is so important when we go into 2026 and we have a massive regulation change like we had talked about, Adam, and they make that change. You know what you're going to get. You know that your CFD, your wind tunnel are talking to each other properly. You know exactly what you're going to get when you get out onto the racetrack. And that is just so important for a team to really nail down something that Aston Martin is trying to do at this moment, is trying to get everything working together so they know when they hit the track next year, they're going to have a decent car. Same thing with Sauber / Audi. And I just can't say enough good things about what Jonathan Wheatley's done with that team. Like Red Bull, when you and I talked about Jonathan Wheatley leaving Red Bull and heading down to Audi, you and I knew what that team had just lost. And you're seeing what Jonathan Wheatley brings to a team. He is a team guy. He builds teams.
Yep.
And that's what you need, and that's what you got. That's your guy. And I think, things could look pretty good for Audi to start off in Formula One next year, Adam.
Yeah, well, I like Jonathan Wheatley tremendously. He just seems like a really, I don't know, he just seems like a really cool guy. Kind of like James Vowles. You're just like one of those guys. I'm like, I want to hang out with you, But also, seemingly, he's created a sense of unity that Sauber team has lacked for years.
Great
and
point.
Years and years.
It most certainly has. That's his specialty, Adam. Right? Is building a club, like making sure chemistry, or like everyone around, all that chemistry, like it works. Putting people in the places where he knows they're going to succeed, and taking the talent and using that talent and not burying it away somewhere. I think that's Jonathan Wheatley's, biggest strength.
Yeah. Tim, I've saved this question because this one to me is one of the juicier parts of the show. And, we got some juiciness off the top with the McLarens and Max Verstappen and all that stuff. I want to talk and I want to know, because this was the big conversation going into this weekend. George Russell was saying that, he alluded to the fact that his contract negotiations had been held up by some other driver. Helmut Marko and Christian Horner were quick to respond about that. For George and for Kimi Antonelli, where do their actual contracts stand with Mercedes?
Yeah, let's start with Kimi Antonelli first, because he was actually only signed for one full season. So he still needs to be re-signed as well for 2026 and beyond. And I think when we look at Kimi Antonelli and his season so far as a whole, I think he's done a really remarkable job. Now, granted, he is one of the most prepared rookies that I've seen come into F1 and really execute and do well and be strong, essentially, straight off the hop. But I always say with rookies, it does take a few years, right? Like it's always around 3 years where you really see what you actually have. I mean, look at Yuki Tsunoda is a good example of that. I think a lot of folks recognize that Yuki was talented, but it was going to take some time to really understand what they actually had there. And I think same thing when it comes to Kimi Antonelli. Really just need to understand exactly what you have there. But I mean, so far he's looked super impressive. So I couldn't see them not bringing him back. I mean, it does only make sense to me to really fulfill that, promise on Antonelli, because you've invested so much time, so much capital, not only getting him to Formula One, but getting him prepared for F1. Now, as for George Russell, a little bit different story there. I mean, he's out of contract at the end of this season, and on Friday, Russell did say that the Verstappen camp had been, having conversations with Mercedes team principal and CEO Toto Wolff, and that Russell understood that was normal. And look, we all, any one of us, if we were a team principal, we would be talking with Max Verstappen. You have to have those conversations with him if you see that he is unhappy at the team that he's currently at, which at this point, I mean, there's nothing on record that says that he is. You just go by body language, things that you see in the paddock, and all those types of things. I don't know how easy it would be for Max to leave his current deal with Red Bull Racing and walk down to Mercedes and jump in their car there. There could be some strings that are attached. I mean, there was a report by motorsport.com, I believe it was, a few weeks ago, that had said that, Verstappen, if he was outside of, I believe it was the top 4 in the Drivers' Championship by summer break, or was it the end of June? It was one or the other. You'd have to go and reference it. I'm really just grabbing the stuff off the top of my head. But essentially, if he was outside of the top 4, that he could trigger the out clause in his contract. Now, again, we don't know if that's 100% certain. It's just things that we actually hear. So I think when you take a look at then George Russell and his season as a whole, I mean, he's been really strong. He has stepped up and he has been the leader of this Mercedes team. That's what Toto Wolff has asked of him. That's what he has delivered so far. He hasn't put a foot wrong at any point so far this season. He's been just there hanging around, picking up the scraps when he has to. And he's been executing when the car is there for him to execute with, like Canada, where they came in as soon as they switched the suspension around, the rear suspension. They used the one that they had introduced in Imola, and they brought it back and used it for Canada. They use it again here in Austria as well, but that seemed to give them a lot more performance around Canada. And I did say that George Russell was probably going to be really strong in Canada, and sure enough, he was. So that meaning when the performance is there, Russell, well, he has gone out and he has executed. And so if you're Toto Wolff, you've also invested a lot of time, money, energy into getting George Russell ready for Formula One, bringing him into Formula One, putting him at Williams for whatever it was, 3 seasons, bringing him then down to the big team. And he has performed. He hasn't regressed. And sitting down and talking with Russell for, throughout Canada, all the time I spent with him there, I mean, it's very impressive to see how he's been able to shut out all the noise in terms of the contract talk and keeping, all of that type of stuff at bay when I think a lot of other drivers, well, they may really feel the heat at this moment. And it could be a difficult hurdle for some drivers to get over. And I think for George, he's done a remarkable job, not only being under as much pressure that he's been under, but also delivering the goods when he has to. So I just don't understand why you would move away from that. I mean, granted, Verstappen is a generational talent. There's not a lot like him that are out there. And I get that. But I think when you've invested so much time, money, energy into a prospect like George Russell, and now you see that, it's really starting to bear fruit, I don't know why you would just, walk away from that. And I think for Russell on his side, I think he's just waiting for Toto Wolff to sign off on his deal and to bring him back to the team for next season. But I think for Toto, he wants to get something done before the summer break. So I expect we're going to have something from someone in the not too distant future here. I want to talk a little bit about Franco Colapinto before we jump into questions. And apologies, we've lost Adam. We've lost Adam. We had some technical difficulties here, so really apologize. But yeah, it appears that Adam's dropped out. So I'm going to power through here to the end and try and cap this thing up. But I want to talk about Franco Colapinto real quick. Had a difficult weekend, obviously. Was a bit of a struggle. Finished P15 in the race. So before the weekend even really began, Colapinto, this was the end of his 5-race evaluation that Flavio Briatore was quoted as saying in the Alpine press release that was put out before Imola. Now, that 5-race evaluation, I mean, it's been a challenge for sure. He hasn't been put in a really fantastic situation where he's going to succeed. It's a very challenging thing that he's having to undertake here. So I could understand why the performances aren't necessarily there just yet. He is going to get another chance. He'll be back in the car for the British Grand Prix, and then again, more evaluation. We'll see how long he gets from here on out. It doesn't sound like there's a date on this either. I mean, Briatore even came out the next race when that press release came out and said, there's no 5-race evaluation. So we'll see when it comes to Franco Colapinto and how long he lasts in the seat. Briatore didn't sound too thrilled with the performance over this weekend. So we'll see. We'll see how that pans out for him. But no set time frame on how many races he could potentially do from here on out. But again, he will be driving at the British Grand Prix this coming weekend, and I'll be there for that, so can get some more news on what's going on down there. I'm going to take some of your questions here. Let me just pull up. So we had some questions over on social media, Twitter, Blue Sky, and we'll start with Michael Klink. Apologies if I messed up your name. With the lockup that Oscar Piastri had and the flat spots as a result, would McLaren have thought of bringing him in first for tires before Lando? I see the question. I mean, I think what you have to remember is that usually what happens for the driver who's behind, first driver always gets priority. And that's usually it works with all the teams that don't necessarily change that rule. It's not something that's really like up for debate, let's call it. So yeah, for the most part, drivers who are not unless it's like a flat tire, like not unless the tire's going down and he's got a pit, then they definitely would bring him in for sure. But if it's a flat spot that they can see that he can manage, then you have to prioritize your lead driver who is in the lead of the race, and you can't give up that track position just for the sake of giving up track position. It's very important that you don't do that. So essentially, that's sort of why I think my bigger question to yours would be, why didn't they pit Oscar immediately following pitting Lando on that first stint for tires? I think that is a question. And, Oscar was asked about that in the post-race press conference. He kind of wanted to keep that behind closed doors. He would have a conversation with the team, and they were going to sort it out. And who knows? Maybe I'll learn more when I get to the British Grand Prix next weekend. Jeremy Pyatt asks, if Max doesn't get 5 in a row, World Drivers' Championships, he means, for Red Bull Racing, he would be tied with Sebastian Vettel on 4 Drivers' Championships. The question, who ranks higher all time at that point? Max Verstappen or Sebastian Vettel? That's a really great question. And it's interesting when you compare level of driver. I would say when the brake-by-wire system came in 2014, we saw Seb struggle with that. I don't know if necessarily he was able to kind of work that out for seasons following that. Because I think if he could have, I would wonder if he would actually have moved to Ferrari. But then when he was at Ferrari, he did have some impressive performances, but then he just had some shockers as well. I mean, Germany, what was it? Germany 2018, I think it was. Yeah, that was a tough one. I mean, look, it's hard to compare those two, but I think Max is a generational talent. I think he is so incredible that he is taking the sport really to another level. Like he just is. Like he's upped. I think Max has done what the likes of Senna, Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton did with the sport, in really just taking things up just another notch. Excuse me. And I think for Max, doing the sim racing, always driving, just having that appetite to keep driving something different. I'm driving this today. I'm going to drive this tomorrow. I mean, heck, he was doing tests at the Nordschleife recently in an Aston Martin, getting that car prepped and ready to go. And then coming back home and then jumping back on his sim at home. And when you start to drive like different things. So one of the things that I used to do when I was in Formula Renault, I would also drive GT cars. I would also go back and drive go-karts. I would drive different Formula cars, and even Formula BMWs, just whatever I could drive. So I was always driving something different. And what that did for me was it allowed me to experience different types of cars. So when I'm in my full-time ride, if the car started to do something I didn't like, I kind of had a quick fix to understand how to drive around it. And that's sort of like digging into your tool belt for all your tools and remembering that, hey, when I did this with this car, it did this. I can't necessarily do exactly that, but I can do something similar to that, and maybe that will help me drive around the problem. But with Max, I think he's kind of taken that to another level with the sim racing, so much sim racing, the different brake pedal feels that he uses on his sim at all. Now, the more simming I'm doing, the more I'm learning as well. So I can, start to understand what he's kind of playing around with. But all that muscle memory and all those things kind of just takes everything to another level, really. I think, anyways. But yeah, I think for me, it's Max, and I think it's because of him just pushing the sport to just another level, really. Andrew says, what a race. both kick Sauber cars in the points. Do you expect them to keep progressing and getting both cars in there, or was this them getting everything right in a race where 4 points scoring cars retired? Good question. I would say that we can expect more from Sauber. Jonathan Wheatley, like I'd said, he's done a great job with this team. And I think when we look into the future of Sauber, I mean, they're on a great, interesting path, let's just call it, of getting a good car consistent car, we'll call it, for the rest of the season, which has me thinking about next year as well, and what can we expect from them. And so when I take a look at their car in Austria, obviously they brought upgrades there. So it was good to see that those upgrades worked. But I think when we start to get to different tracks, there's going to be tracks where Sauber is really competitive. There's going to be tracks where Sauber is just trying to get into the points. And when you take a look at the championship constructors standings, I mean, Sauber's like right there, right behind Aston Martin, catching up to Williams, like all that kind of stuff. And you have to wonder, like, okay, did Williams do the right thing and basically saying like, hey, we're going to pull a plug on everything here when it comes to development, and we're going to focus on 2026. Williams right now has 55 points, Racing Bull's 36, Haas has 29, Aston Martin 28, Sauber 26. Now, I think fifth place in the constructor standings is now up for grabs. You saw what happened with Haas this weekend and how they turned things around. You saw what happened with Racing Bulls as well. Liam Lawson was very impressive. Aston Martin, I mean, Fernando Alonso was on another level this weekend. Just some of the things he was able to pull off, remarkable. And then Williams, 2 cars retired. So can these other teams, catch up? Can Alpine even catch up? I don't know about Alpine. We'll see with Alpine. It could be tough for them though, because obviously they're in 10th with 11 points, so it could be a little challenging. I think for Williams, maybe not the best time of saying, hey, we're going to pull the plug on a lot of our development and focus on next year. And it's kind of like, okay, well, hold on a second here. If all these other teams behind you are going to keep developing, I mean, you're going to run into a problem here or there, which brings us to our next question from Drew. He asked, don't you just feel terrible for Carlos Sainz? First, he loses his seat at Ferrari, a dream seat, and now his stint in Williams has just been one disaster after another. I like Carlos Sainz's choice with going with Williams, and we'll see next year if that was the right choice, because obviously that is when Williams has been working towards, and they've been working towards 2026 now for the past few seasons. They've got their 2 drivers who they've always wanted. They got them, and I think they've got the right drivers as well to help propel the team forward. So, yes, I think Carlos has made the right decision, and yeah, I'm excited to see where they're able to take that team for next year. I mean, obviously, when they're not going to be bringing massive amounts of development to this car for this season, and I think that could be a bit of an error that may bite them later down the road, because this is going to be a long championship to finish out the season. These teams are still going to be competing for points, for money, and higher up on the Constructors' Championship standings. Ryan asked, did Franco Colapinto ruin an exciting finish for us by forcing Oscar off the track as a back marker for being lapped? I don't think so. I don't think Oscar there wasn't enough laps left for Oscar to catch Lando. I don't think it ruined the finish. I do have to question, where was Franco looking? As soon as I saw that happen on TV, he was kind of like doing this fade over to the right. And I'm just like, what are you doing, man? Like, do you not know that there's someone? Can you not hear them? Because sometimes you can actually hear the car beside you. So that was a little strange. But I don't think that Franco intentionally did it. And then I also think that it didn't really ruin the finish to the race, because I don't actually think that Oscar was going to catch Lando there. I think there needed to be a few more laps left to go for that to happen. Patrick St. Jacques asks, do you think Verstappen's bid for the Drivers' World Championship is over now? Keep up the great work. Hey, thanks very much, Patrick. Appreciate that. Like we had talked about towards the beginning of the show, I do. It's such a hard one. Like, I don't want to sit here and say like no, because things can happen, but at the same time, Patrick, there are a number of different things I believe that need to happen if Max wants to have a chance. And one of the big things is getting the performance out of this car, because it is not there just yet. And if it's not there just yet, winning a 5th Drivers' Championship, forget about it. It's going to be way too hard. I mean, Max is super talented, obviously. An incredible driver, but not even he can make up that deficit, we'll call it. Sorry about losing Adam there, everybody. Him and I are going to be back on probably like Wednesday or Thursday this week coming up. I am flying to the British Grand Prix on Tuesday, and I arrive on Wednesday morning and probably won't get settled into the Airbnb until Wednesday night, UK time. So I'll talk to Adam and we'll see if we can wrestle up a podcast for then. If not, then I'll get to it Thursday following media day, when I've been able to talk to all the drivers and all that kind of stuff. Thanks very much, everybody, for watching and listening. Appreciate it. Happy Canada to all those Canadians who watch and listen as well. And we'll talk to you all in a few days' time.